Welcome from A Conversation with Faye, and today my guest is Annie Kallis. And Annie is a relationship architect, and what she does is she helps men and women rebuild their intimate relationships so they can have more love, respect and harmony in their lives. Welcome, Annie, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Faye. I'm so grateful and honored to be here. And as a relationship architect, I'm all about relationships. And today you and I have a very special day. Do you want to share that with them?
No, I think you can share it with them if you like. It was just by coincidence that it actually popped up, wasn't it? And you reminded me of when we first met, where we met. And so you share, please, Annie.
So I can't remember the year, 2015, right?
Something like that, yes.
So today was 6 years since we actually met at an event.
Yes.
We have been friends ever since. So it's so befitting that we're doing this interview today about the relationships, because we built a relationship by meeting on this day 6 years ago. And I thought this is so awesome. It's almost like it's meant to be for us to have this amazing conversation. And, you know, over the last 6 years, we have developed so much as individuals, and we talked so many times, you know, about our life and what we are doing in the world. So this is just I think it's so wonderful and perfect today to do this.
It certainly is. And I think the reason that I wanted to have this conversation with you, Annie, is in this time that we are going through now, relationships are a very important part of everyone's life. It doesn't matter whether it's a relationship with yourself, a relationship with your family, your friends, your partner, your husband, whomever it is. But it's really important to have relationships and build communities that give you support. And particularly now when there's so much doubt, worry and fear in the world, share with me, what is your actual purpose in life, Annie?
Thank you. That's a great question. So my statement to the world is that forgiveness is freedom. And my purpose is to teach people how to forgive. But there's a bigger game here. So, you know, when people talk about in business, you know, what's your mission, what's your vision, what's your purpose? So it took me a while to nail it, but then I did, because I looked into myself and into my past, my childhood, my relationships with my parents, my marriage, my all that kind of stuff. And then I realized that at the core of it all for me is the children. So I grew up in a family where we weren't safe. There was 3 of us, and there was no safety net. There was always something that was going on, and a lot of abuse. And looking back, I wish I would have felt safer to be able to go to my parents and say something, and then be listened to, rather than perhaps what I said being used against me or abused or whatever, right? So my vision for the world is to have millions of homes where children feel safe. And then from there, I thought, well, okay, so what is the mission? And the mission is to build delicious relationships. So help people build delicious relationships. Because if a couple, whether it's same sex or whether it's, you know, heterosexual relationships, if they have a beautiful relationship, a loving, respectful, harmonious, a relationship where there's lots of communication, it is delicious. You know, that's my word, delicious. But it is what's delicious. Delicious is something that's yummy, that's beautiful, that's like, So if you have a relationship like that, the people in your home, which is the children, would feel safe because you're happy and there's a happy environment, a happy energy. Now, how can you achieve that? By acceptance and forgiveness, because that creates freedom.
Okay, I want to take you back to forgiveness, because we as human beings sometimes find it difficult to forgive. So is there a process or something that you can take people through that helps them see how they can forgive, not only forgive others, but to forgive themselves?
That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Faye. Well, I developed a process, a methodology. So when I work with people, I take them through this methodology, but because before you can actually achieve forgiveness, there's many things that you need to understand about yourself. And when I work, sometimes I work just with individuals, and then I work with couples. So ultimately, it's always about discovering yourself.
Yes.
And if you do the work together with your partner, you start to learn about your partner things that you didn't know about them, things that you never thought about. You actually understand why they operate the way they operate in their life. What's their status quo? And sometimes when people are in conflict, the conflict is because there's a misunderstanding about something based on your own programming and upbringing. So how do you achieve forgiveness? What is forgiveness? Forgiveness is actually letting go of resentment. So people have resentment towards another. When I work with them, they realize that partially the resentment is about themselves. They're angry with themselves because they didn't know any better, because, I should have known that. How?
And that is a really interesting thing, how, because when we actually are, saying something about somebody else, that is actually reflecting back on who we are, because it's something we don't like about who we are. And resentment, it's a really strong word, but it is something that is happening so much right now. The resentment of our lives totally changed. We don't have the freedom to say, do, or think what we want to do. And that is a resentment. And that can build up and fester. How can we turn that around so that we can change what is going on in our lives now that we don't really have control of, but we can make our lives better anyway, regardless of what's going on in the outside world?
Yes, so true. And the thing is, in general, people always look outwards.
Yes.
At who could make me happy, what can make me happy. Let's go buy another thing. Let's do another thing. Let's eat this. Let's go here. And that's great, because that's part and parcel of our life. So we do have an outside life. But many people go outwards because they don't want to go internally, because it's too painful. Memories can be too painful. However, there's that threshold. And if you have the courage to just step over and do the discovery, all of a sudden things change so fast. And it can be a moment. It can be a moment, like if you work with someone, and I always recommend for people to work with professionals, because that's why they're professionals. They studied that kind of stuff, right? Whatever it is, whether it's a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, a psychotherapist, a coach, whatever it is, these people, this is their profession, right? There's nothing wrong with going. I hear a lot of people, there's nothing wrong with me. Well, I'm not saying there's something wrong with you. But there's just some things that you're not aware of, or you don't have the knowledge, where somebody else can help you pull that out. Because people ask themselves, why? Well, where are you looking for the answer?
And they don't get the answer. And a lot of the time when things happen, we can ask why, but there is no real answer. And as you said, what most of us do is look to the outside world, what is going on, our outside environment, to what is going on. But it's not looking out, it's looking within and finding out who we actually are, what we need, who we need to speak to if we need to speak to somebody. And, sometimes people accept and they say, this is my lot in life, and so I'll just I'll just go along with that and put up with it because that's all I deserve. Well, that I always say that's rubbish, because everybody has some magic inside them. Everybody has something beautiful that they can offer to someone or many. And what you do is you help in relationships, not only in partnerships, but in the relationship of an individual to themselves, to find that beauty from within and allow it to shine on the outside. And that could take a long time, or it could take a short time.
Well, I have various programs. So some of them are 6 months, some of them are 8 weeks. So it's up to the individual what they get out of it and how much they apply themselves. So here's the thing: when you're given let's say a task, like let's call it an assignment, right, or homework, whatever you want to call it, right? You got to go and do it. And when they don't do it, then that's when we can address that. It's not about, oh, you're going to get punished like in school, you didn't do your homework. This is when the signs come up. It's like, okay, so what was your chain of thought? What were your emotions that made you not do the homework?
Yeah, what was stopping them?
Because it's not about the homework, it's about something that's coming up. And sometimes we can go for a couple of weeks with the same pattern, and when we realize the pattern, that habit, we realize that habit is not serving them, and then they can create what is going to serve them. I don't do anything. I just guide. I just give them the tools, and I'm just there to hold it back, to support them, because truly, as you said, everybody has brilliance inside, but it's been locked away due to
lots of things.
The programming, right? So you are born, when you're born, babies are born in high spirit. Why? They just yell at the top of their lungs, and they cry when they want something, and they don't sit there, oh, I should be quiet. They let the world know that they're here. And then somewhere along the way, that tapers out to the point that people are not saying anything. And as you said, they feel they don't deserve it, right? And what happens there is that they reduce their expectation. I shouldn't expect that. I'm just going to expect that because I know I get that. But they're still hurting because within, intuitively, they know there's more. There's more that they deserve. There's more that they can have, because it's possible, because they had it at one point in their life and then something happened, and now they, especially in long-term relationships, when you first meet somebody, you're up here. But if you continue doing what you were doing here, you will constantly remain there. But they don't. Things taper out, and then the expectations are sort of dwindle away, and then they wake up one day going, why am I hurting so much? Why am I so sad? Why am I so resentful? Yeah, but I love my partner. They're good people. Yeah, they're good people, but they are going through something too. So how do you turn that around? Because it's possible to turn it around.
Do they become complacent? And I mean, you start off in a relationship, as you say, up here, and it peters out over the years for lots of different reasons. And then it comes to the crunch and you think, well, what am I doing here? Why am I here? What's going on? And you start asking yourself the questions. But what happens is that you're not looking at the good stuff. You're always looking at that stuff that's you don't like about that person. But it's not that person, it's you.
Yeah, so I mean, there's two things here. There's actually that mirror effect, is that, you get triggered by something that you see in another person, but you got to see that inside of you. And a lot of people struggle with that concept. They're going, what do you mean by that? Right? So, and I struggled with that when I was doing my personal development. Like I started because I wanted to become a better wife because I thought there was something wrong with me, right? But the more I was looking internal, the more I was realizing that I was pointing a finger at him, whereas everything was in here. He was a gift to me because he was triggering me. So if anybody, all of you that are listening to this, and if you relate to this, your partner is there to trigger you, so you can go internal to go, why am I being triggered here? And find out, because your partner didn't do anything. They're doing their thing, their lot, right? Their perception of life, which is not in line with yours. So you need to go and figure out, why am I being rattled by this? And when you discover that, you go, oh, I got it. So seek first to understand and then to be understood. And if you stop and you listen to what the other person is saying and you start asking questions, be inquisitive and be interested, you will become interesting, right?
Yes. It's kind of like reverse psychology, isn't it? When you think about it, because I think we all want to be understood. I think that we all want not to be judged and to be accepted as who we are, or to find who we actually are, because sometimes we get lost in so much dilemma, I'll say, that's going on in life and in the outside world that disrupts that person that we can be, and we get sidetracked.
Yeah, we do. And this is where it's very important that, well, first of all, let's look at the word complacency, right? And I actually did a video about this the other day, because I talk to people all the time, and long-term relationships, people become complacent. And what is complacency in general? A complacency, when you look at the definition, it's almost like it's almost like, I'm good, I've achieved that, I'm okay, I can kick back now, right? And this is what happens in relationships. It's almost like a little bit of an ego trip, a little bit of it's satisfaction. I'm satisfied, I'm good, I know I'm loved, I know I have my home, I have my kids, for those that have the kids, I'm good. But that satisfaction and that security stops a person from doing what is necessary to keep the relationship alive. So that they sit back, and also, I mean, there's a benefit to it, or an upside to it, where you go, okay, I'm safe in my relationship, is great. So that's great, because it's a death trap to the relationship.
They start taking things for granted.
That's
and
right.
They expect things to happen all the time the way they want it to happen, but it doesn't.
Yeah, so people stop making an effort to connect. Why does sex stop in relationships? Complacency. She'll be right, he'll be right, he's there, we'll do it, or I'm too tired, or I'm too this, or I'm too that. But sex stops because already the emotional intimacy has stopped. And most people are seeking, and both men and women, they're seeking the same thing. They're seeking that connection, right? Oh my goodness, I think my neighbor has decided to cut the grass, so I'm not sure how much.
Can't hear it.
For now, but it's gonna go crazy. So if it does, forgive us. Right?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so
it's life.
So I heard this from Tony Robbins, who's one of the world's biggest coaches, strategists. He talks a lot about relationships, and he says a relationship is where you go to give, not where you go to get. So, and he also said, and I really, really love this, he said, if you will do the same thing you did when you started, right through, there would be no end.
Yes.
And people forget, and sometimes when I work with couples, I go, okay, what I'd like you to do is to go back to that moment when you met. And I'd like you to write down what you felt, what you saw, what you thought. And that's kind of like going back 20 years. But if you can actually do that, I could tell you every moment when I met my husband. Now, we're not married anymore, right? But I can still remember that moment. And to me, he's a blessing. He was a blessing in my life, is a blessing in my life. We get along very, very well now, right? It was just one of those things I didn't know. I didn't know what to do. I pointed fingers, he pointed fingers, and eventually the pain was so deep that we went separate ways. And I do not want, and this is why I do what I do, I don't want other people to experience this, because there's a way that you can save it. Now, along the way that I was learning what I was learning, I started to take responsibility. And I can tell you, for the last 5 years, I've been owning up and going back to him and say, oh, do you remember that thing you told me? He's like, no. I said, well, you told me this and I didn't take it on. And I agree. He's like, what? I said, I agree. I said, I can see where you were coming from. I just didn't know how to ask you the question. And what happened is I was taking things personally, whereas it wasn't personal. It was his point of view based on his values and his way of being, but I didn't accept that. And the moment I started to accept everything about him, now we go have coffees, we get together, we do Mother's Day, Father's Day, and it's easy. It's really easy, right? So sometimes it happens that people separate, but you can separate amicably. It doesn't need to
absolutely
be awful. Whereas a lot of people going through horrible, horrible separations, and there's so much anger and resentment around it.
And I want to bring you back to children now, because looking at children who are now being homeschooled, their parents are working full time. They've got to make time to make sure their kids are doing their homeschooling properly. They've got to make sure that their health and wellness, their mental and emotional wellness is okay and not dwindling away or not recognizing what's going on with them. Because kids these days, I mean, they love to be with their friends. They love to go to school and connect with their friends and socialize as well as do their schoolwork. They can't do that now. So they're saying there's a lot of mental health issues coming from lots of areas of life, but particularly teenagers whom really do seek their friends and their friendships to catch up and be with them. But if they can't do that, which is supposedly not happening, but I know it is happening, that they're catching up, and that's okay, because that's healthy. When they're sitting back and thinking, I can't go to school, can't do this, can't do that, what's your perception of that? What is it, do you think, that they could do, or their parents or communities could do to help these kids with their emotional wellness or well-being?
Yes, thank you. Well, there's a couple of things. If people are wanting to go back the way it was, it will never happen again, because things have shifted. That's it. What was, it's gone. That's it. Like people say, oh, I wish my relationship was the way it was when we met. Well, hang on. When you were 20, you had different values, different ways of being. You are 40 or 50 years old now. You're different. You're more mature. You have different values. Other things are important to you. So the whole idea is to look at where are we at now, and push the reset button and come to like, okay, you can look at what was good about what we had before, make a list, and it's about getting together and talking as a family, right? Finding out from the kids what is going on for them, what are they feeling, and sit and listen. And listening, like when you say to someone, have you ever experienced this? You're not listening to me. I can hear you. I can hear you.
But they're not listening.
So there's, I tell everybody, Google hearing versus listening, and you'll see what comes up. Hearing, we hear noise. We even hear the silence of the night.
Yes.
We hear. But listening has something else with it, intention. Listening with intent is listening with wanting to understand what's going on for the other person.
Absolutely.
Kids don't have the maturity and the understanding Like a 7-year-old would never have the understanding of a 40-year-old. So why does the 40-year-old expect the 7-year-old to behave and act and speak and do in a particular way? Like, if you really think about it, that is fairly ridiculous, right? It's like they don't have, the brain is not grown enough.
Well, their maturity is at a different level, their maturity.
Maturity is that full on, like when your brain is fully mature, is at 21, right?
If that sometimes.
Well, yes, but when you look at, let's say, statistics, and you look at the, call it the science or the medical, like you look at psychological things and mental things, is you grow, and at about 21 is when you have a comprehension at a level that is much more mature. Right? But at 7, even 21 to 7, that's 14 years of growth, right? And
that's massive.
It is. And people get frustrated. Oh, your attention span is like 30 seconds. Yes, they already moved on. It's like this, right? And then, the home is where children feel safe. The home is where they come home to love, relaxation, play, because that's where they grew up. They grew up in love, they grew up in play, they grew up with family.
And to be themselves. And
yes,
yeah,
that's not where the education system is. It's a different type of education that
totally
on, right? So now parents are yelling at children, do your homework, study. 8 hours in your different environment, because there's a different context, and context is more important than content, right? So school has its specific context. This is what we do, this is where you go, it's every single hour, then you have a break, then you have this, then you have that, right? But at home, we've been relaxed and happy and go to our bedroom and talk to our friends. Now all of a sudden we need to spend 8 hours at our desk with no breaks, we know this, because our parents now are too busy doing their work. So if you stop for a break, go back and study. Do you know how much I hear of this? And parents getting upset with the kids. Oh, you're gonna fail your exams. Let me ask you this. So what?
And talking about exams, I mean, you can learn, and you can know things for a little while, but if it isn't important to you, or if you don't, what am I trying to say here? You don't comprehend it in a way that it's supposed to be learnt, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you fail your exams. If you go out into the big wide world, if you have the initiative, and you have the get up and go to have a go at something and learn, then you'll achieve anything. You look at all the people in history who never went to school, who created things, who had the determination to keep going and have a go because they knew that they could achieve something in the end. And I think that, and I've seen a lot of it, kids who aren't scholars at school but go out and they're successful in the world, whereas the kids that are scholars at school and really learn their stuff aren't as much. They don't become the entrepreneurs. They go into a job they probably don't like, or their parents wanted them to do, etc., and they don't experience or experiment with the work and the skills that they can learn and develop. And if you go into something you don't like, then you can go into something else, but look at the skills you've learned that you can take on to that. But when they're at home right now, they've got to sit at a computer, which is really impersonal, and partake in class lessons all day when it's as boring as hell for them, because there's no real stimulation there.
Yeah, well, the education system is good for, it's got its purpose. However, anyone who's creative struggles with that. We know kids that are creative struggle even at school, let alone at home. But just to be, because some parents might go, what do you know, and I don't want my kid to fail. Of course not. So, but you got to find a way to invite your kid to do the work that they need to do, because it will give them pride. It will give them a future, because ultimately, this whole pandemic will finish.
Yeah.
Like anything else in the past, the Spanish flu finished, the World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War. Like when we look at history, the Big Depression, it has finished at some point. So this will finish at some point too. But I just think that parents as a family got to sit down and share their feelings and their thoughts, because this is what I'm feeling, and let everybody be heard. I feel stressed, like the husband may be, or the wife, depending, because in this day and age, one or the other can be the breadwinner, one party or the other. I feel the pressure. I don't know if I'm going to lose my job, and then the other partner is, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine, because as long as you've got that emotional security that I'm there, I got your back, for all of them, for the kids and for the parents. My son, so why do I say all of this? Is because I have a son who has failed university last year, and he didn't know how to tell us, and he was absolutely distraught, beside himself. And when he finally said it, because he knew he has to tell us, we just sat there and we thought, of course you did. And he goes, what? I said, of course you did. Your whole environment got turned upside down. And I understand that for you to be connected to your friends, because I know what kind of kid he is, because if he was an academic, he would have eaten those books.
Yes.
He would have done the work. He would have done whatever, but he's not an academic. He's a creative. So he was creating with his friends and connecting. He's a social person. And I said, okay, Julian, okay, this is 1 year that's gone by. You have the future ahead of you. Now, okay, maybe I'm just a different type of parent, but I'm just sharing with the world that these kids are so worried that and he said, I thought you're not going to love me.
Really?
And I sat there, he went back to uni. First, he wanted to get a job. He didn't get a job. And at the beginning of this year, I said, dude, you said you're going to get a job. You didn't get a job. So are you going to get a job, or are you going to go back to uni? I'll go back to uni. All right. So he went back to uni, because, clearly we thought that we're going to be open. We're going to, So, but it was at the beginning of the year, right? So he's gone back to uni. And then one day I was speaking to my former partner, and I said, say hello to Julian. And he said, and when he comes from uni, he goes, oh, he's at home. I go, why is he at home? He goes, he's not feeling well. And I don't know what made me say, I got to go and I got to see him. I got in my car and I went to see him, and he was in bed. And as soon as I saw his face, I went, okay, something's not right here. I said, what's going on? And he burst into tears. He's 19, right? Big ass of a man, grown, 6'2", right? Built like a truck. And he's sitting in bed crying like a little boy. And I said, tell me what's going on. He goes, I can't do this anymore. I just cannot do this anymore. I can't go to school. It's been too long. I said, why didn't you say something? And he said, I thought you're not going to love me. And I went, since when have we as parents given you the impression that we're not going to love you? He said, I know, Mom, you didn't, but that's how I felt. Now, if I didn't listen to him, I wouldn't have known his heartbreak. In his world, he created a story. So our children create their own stories, and they talk themselves into it because they feel shame, they feel embarrassed, they go, I'm not good enough, I should have stuck it out and all of that. And I said, what do you want to do? He said, I want to stop. I said, well, then you need to do what you need to do. And he's looking at me. I said, I'm not going to make the decision for you. You need to make the decision for yourself. What do you want to do? He said, I'm going to go. He goes, I want to stop. I said, all right, pick up your phone, call the uni now and get for your money back. Actually, you need to give the money back to your dad. It's because you've known about this before, but you pushed your dad to pay for your fees. I said, so now you need to do everything in your power to get it back. And if you don't get it back, you need to pay from your savings. I said, because your father is not here to keep paying when you knew. So we need to hold our kids accountable to a point, right? Everything worked out. He called them, he got the money back, but he's a different person. When he got a job at a coffee shop as a dishwasher, and he is happy as Larry. Now, the thing now is that he can't work, but he's creating and he's got his idea of what he wants. We did goal setting. So the thing is, right now, there's still things you can do with your children.
Oh, there's so many things that you can actually do with them.
Yeah.
So let's sum it up for now, because I think there's a lot more conversations to come in the future.
Yeah.
We started with you saying forgiveness is freedom. And freedom to you and I would be different to freedom to somebody else or lots of other people. So what does freedom actually mean? Just sum it up.
Well, in relation to relationships and the challenges in relationships, is a freedom from the feeling of resentment. Resentment is a negative feeling, and it holds you back, and it holds you down, and it holds you negative, in a negative space, and in a lot of pain. So to be able to forgive is to let go it at an emotional level. Because people say, oh yeah, I've forgiven my parents, but they still talk about it. Or I've forgiven my ex, but every time the ex's name comes up, they go like this, right? So there's still energy around it, which means that there's more to it. So it's our responsibility to free ourselves before we free somebody else. We are angry with ourselves for, like I've had signs about my former partner, and I just, in hindsight, I go, wow, I didn't like that, but I didn't act upon it because I'll be all right. But it was a particular behavior that got repeated again and again and again until I went, oh, this is not good enough. And then the partner goes, hang on, I've been doing this for the last 20 years. Now it's not good enough. Why isn't it good enough now? Right?
So speak up.
So the thing is that we beat ourselves up unconsciously, and then we blame somebody else. So the freedom the forgiveness has to come for us, because when we understand that, we know how to apply it to the other person. But you got to understand it first.
That's so true. So true. One tip for people that are having a little bit, I'm going to say a little bit, of difficulty in their relationships now, because they're under the same roof all the time. They can't get out and go to work. Yes, they can go and do their exercise and things like that. They can't catch up with their friends at the pubs or whatever they normally do. So what is it that you can say to people in relationships to get them to communicate and reconnect, or whatever needs to happen? What is a tip?
Well, I have two.
Right.
I've got the bonus plan. So the first one is talk. You've got to talk. You've got to, and this is where the listening comes in, is to just say, hey, you've actually got to grab a cup of tea or a coffee or a wine or whatever you guys do, is to sit down and say, let's talk about what is happening right now. What are we feeling, right? And it's called like a pattern interrupt, because you go all day. We get up, we do the work, we do the breakfast, we do the this, we do the that. It's interrupt your pattern and go, enough is enough. Let's talk. Let's sit down and talk. We haven't talked for a while, but I think now we need to talk. You got to make that decision, have the courage to step up, right? And talk about how are you feeling about the current situation. And if the two parties have different point of views, be respectful to the other person's point of view, because it's their truth. You can't say, no, that's not right. Hang on, that's right for me. That I'm telling you what I'm feeling. Now it's not okay, right? So is talk about it and then ask your partner, how can I support you in this? Big change, big words. That is, how can I support you in this? So that's number one. And number two is gratitude and acknowledgement.
Mm.
Write down 10 things that you're grateful for about your partner. And I challenge you to do this for 7 days. Every day, write down 10 things that you're grateful about your partner. And if that means that you need to go back to when you first met because your partner had that in him or her, write it down. There's things that they do. Like say that when you sneeze, they give you a tissue. Just automatically they give you a tissue because they know when you sneeze, the snot is flying everywhere. And, well, you know, it can be as gross as that, you know, or they say whatever, right? So whatever the situation in your home, but there's certain things that people do that people are not even aware of, but that when you start writing, you become more aware, you become more connected. And then share that acknowledgement with your partner and just say, you know, I discovered something I really love when you make me that cup of coffee, and I never really paid attention that the coffee turns up on my desk. And I just want to say thank you.
It's interesting, isn't it? Don't write the same gratitude every day. Look at the different things. So 7 days of different gratitude. There might be a few things that might be the same, but not everything, so that you can actually look at those 7 days and really be grateful.
Well, for people that haven't done gratitudes before, this can be very challenging to write gratitudes.
Mm.
So even if they write the same thing, but the more they do it, something is going to awaken in your mind. It's just a natural way of being, is that creativity, your brain opens up as you start writing, and all of a sudden this other thing will pop up, and slowly you're going to start changing things.
Mm.
Because people, I know when I work with people and I'd say, okay, so we start the first session today, and for 6 months, you got to write gratitudes. You know, and sometimes they don't do it. They do it for 2 days, and then we talk about it, and then they add another day, and then sometimes they do it for 7 days, and sometimes they don't do it at all. So, but the whole thing is to find like a beautiful pattern and a habit to go into gratitude, even if they just do it in their mind. But when you write, your creativity opens up, because our brain, half is creative and half is logical, right?
Yes.
So what happens in a relationship when you are grateful is, first of all, you want to be grateful, and you want to work on your relationship. And then what happens is, by doing it and telling your partner, they're going to start feeling valued, they're going to start feeling good, then they're going to start responding, and then they're going to start telling you what is good about that, and then you're going to go, oh, thank you. And then you're going to feel really good, and you're going to feel like, oh, I want to give you more. And it becomes this beautiful, beautiful circle of giving and receiving and giving and receiving. And all of a sudden, you're sitting in gratitude about having this amazing person in your life that you kind of over the years kind of just took for granted, because you became complacent in the joy of having a partner.
Mm. Well, Annie, we have spoken so much about so many things. Thank you for your time. And I'm feeling that we should come back and have a few more conversations about a few different topics. So we'll organise that. But thank you for your time today. I'm Faye Waterman, from A Conversation with Faye, and we'll be back again soon. Bye for now.